Afternoon again. Is this on? Are we on? Hello, there we go. Been up here enough. I know what it sounds like when it's working and not working. Lane Kiffin's coaching resume includes 10 conference championships, 8 bowl victories, 4 Heisman winners, and 3 national championships. Last year he led Ole Miss to a 10-win season. The University of Mississippi's second Sugar Bowl since 2015. He is the first Ole Miss coach to win his first 2 Egg Bowls since Billy Brewer did the same in 1983-84. As I was beside a lake in upstate New York on a phone looking longingly at the ability to be on the water, Lane was texting me pictures of he and his son Knox fishing and he and his pet lab Juice on a jet ski. You may be aware that Deadspin has named Juice as the best Twitter account in sports for the summer of 2022. University of Mississippi head football coach Lane Kiffin.
All right, thanks, Commissioner. Excited to be here. You know, I always think that this kind of re-energizes, refreshes you about the season coming up here in the middle of the summer. You know, as you see other players, other coaches, or even as the TV was on before, coming up here on SEC Network, and just kind of reminds you that it's right around the corner. So our job is, I think, really challenging this year because on paper we may look, you know, like we should be decent because we filled a lot of holes with transfer portals. So that is a good system when you lose really good players and you haven't been somewhere long enough to develop a lot of classes of depth. So we are grateful for that, but at the same time, with everything good, there are challenges as well. And you have people coming from, you know, like I've said, kids coming from different parenting, and we got to put them all together as this blended family. So that is challenging, and in fall camp, it won't just be about teaching X's and O's like it always is. You know, we have a lot of culture work to do that you don't really have to do as much because it's already established, because your best players normally have been in your program for a year or two. So look forward to that challenge.
All right, thank you, Coach. If you have a question, please raise your hand. Jack, Jake, or Preston will get a microphone to you. Again, please put the microphone up close to your mouth so we can hear you, and give your name and affiliation. Coach, we're going to start right here in the center, about halfway back. Go ahead, Michael.
Hey, Lane, Michael Casgrande, AL.com. Just wondering your philosophy on calling trick plays when you do them, and what do you remember about Nick Saban and his philosophy on that?
Well, like Kirby Smart used to say, sometimes you come up here and just end up talking about Alabama. So our first question somehow is about Nick Saban. So that's pretty usual. Trick plays, I don't know. I think kind of offense has evolved so much from where we used to be that in a way, maybe you don't run as many because, you know, we're not quite the same as we used to be as far as setting things up as much, because so much is about tempo and how we do things. So I would guess, you know, analytics on trick plays would show maybe we don't do as many as we used to. And Coach kind of was with trick plays, kind of like, you know, fake kicks. Like it had to be a discussion a lot of times right before. He would want to know that week what was in and why, and a lot of times you'd, you know, run it by him before. So, and if they worked, he was happy. If they didn't work, you got ass chewings.
All right, Coach, we'll go over here on the right side, about midway back in the orange.
Coach, Ryan Lavoie, Sports Call Auburn, this way. Ryan Lavoie, Sports Call Auburn. Your offenses have been well regarded for a long time now, and you just lost a quarterback in Matt Corral who you had a lot of praise for. When you look at Jackson Dart, how do you think he's coming along learning your offense? And just in general, do you think your offense is a difficult one to master?
Well, I think we've had a lot of really good offenses you referred to because we've had really good players and really good coaches, assistant coaches. So that's always changing. I think, you know, we don't probably do a lot of things not as well as others, but I think one thing we do pretty well is change our offense to our players, to our skilled players, and it's why people will say we look so different year to year. That's not necessarily off-season studies. That is more who our players are. And now with the portal, we know less about that, so I can't really tell you right now what it's going to look like. We're going to need training camp to figure that out. As far as the quarterback, Jackson coming in, he's young, just like Luke. They just finished their freshman year, and so it was good to have those guys for spring. It's very competitive. We look forward to those guys battling it out and making them both the best that we can, because a lot of times you need both.
Coach, we're going to go right in front of me, about 3 rows back.
Coach Drew DeArmond, WZZN Radio, Huntsville, Alabama. I know you had a lot of history with Charlie Weiss Jr. at Alabama and then with you at FAU. Talk about bringing him back to your staff at Ole Miss and the job he could do. And also, second part of the question, one of the portal additions, Michael Trigg, had a great spring, and talk about kind of your expectations for him.
Okay, I'll start backwards. Michael Trigg, very talented player. Again, another young one that just finished his true freshman year, had a really good spring game, done some really good things, and has a really high ceiling. But with all these portal guys, especially the younger ones, we got a lot of work to do with them to get them into our systems, not just offensive, defensive, and special teams, but culture-wise. So, he's got a really high ceiling. We're excited to have him. And the first question was about Charlie Weiss. As I mentioned before, we've been fortunate to have really good players and really good assistant coaches. Jeff Levy did an unbelievable job for us. I'm sure he'll do a great job at his alma mater, Oklahoma. And Charlie has been with us been with myself 2 places before. I've always thought he was way ahead of the game, not just because he started young with his dad, but his mind is really unique and special. Can really memorize things like no other. So we're excited to have him in there and be able to work with him and put together a really exciting offense.
Coach, we're going to go right here in the middle in front of me, about 3/4 of the way back.
Lane, Mike Rodak from AL.com. Just what sort of benefit is there to having that Alabama game be so late in the season this year after, early last season having to take that loss and then have to overcome it after that?
Well, no disrespect to Alabama. I couldn't tell you what number on the schedule they were, because we got a lot of things to figure out, to work on before we get to game 1. So I'm not concerned about the schedule. I had a question earlier. Do you like that supposedly it's easier up front? Well, you don't know that. You got no idea. At the end of the year, all you guys, us included, think these teams are going to be better than these, and you don't know. So we just got to work one day at a time, integrate all these new players in, and play the best we can.
Okay, we'll go down here, front left, Parrish, behind you, other side.
Parrish Alford Daily Journal. Lane, can you talk a little bit about the things Matt did for you off the field last year, leadership, other characteristics, and where your candidates are in those areas?
Well, Matthew is a special player, as you guys know, but a special leader. And, he just led by example. He'd go run in the offseason with the receivers and beat all of them, including Mingo, who's here. Will tell you the story, how hard he worked. And I think our defensive players, he won them by the style that he played, by running over linebackers. And so that's a challenge to replace. And so that won't just be quarterback. I think you got to have great leadership when you lose somebody like that, and you have young quarterbacks coming in regardless of who wins it, for other people around him, around that position, to step up.
Coach, we'll go right here on the near aisle, closest to you, right in front on the aisle.
Hey, Lane, Colin Wilson with the Action Network. Before last season, the record for 4th down attempts was 46. Ole Miss had 49 last year. Is there an expectation that will be the current pace this year? Is it just down and distance, analytics, field position, or could we be even more aggressive with Ole Miss football this year?
Well, thank you. I did not know we set a record. So now I know we have the most attempts in the history of football. So I used to coach for Pete Carroll. He said, don't just do things really well, do them better than anybody's ever done before. So at least I know that stat. And I think that's an interesting stat, that when you talk about recruiting and players and once they get there, we sell too that we believe in you. And that's why it's not just, analytics, that's a huge part of it, but it's the players feel that we believe in you, that we put you in those situations, that we play so aggressively. And, so I can't predict what that's going to be like year to year as far as fourth down attempts, but, it's not easy. And like anything, if everything was easy, everybody would do it. So I get a lot of coaches don't follow the analytics because it's very hard for that press conference afterwards or that stadium to turn on you when it doesn't work. And the Alabama game the last 2 years is a perfect example. The first year we play them, we make a bunch of them, and everybody's saying, oh, that's great, and then the next year we don't. And then you got to go to that press conference. So it's not easy to do, but, there's a reason why we do it because, analytics are proof, and your players know that you believe in them.
Coach, we're going to go to our left, back alongside the wall.
How you doing, Coach? Scotty from Off Script, two-part question. There's two big personalities in the state of Mississippi, you and Deion Sanders. How has Deion Sanders touching down in Mississippi affected your recruiting? And also, I see that you have Central Arkansas on your schedule. Is there any plan down the line to play at Jackson State University? And are you open to that?
Well, we got another personality, Mike Leach, so I would say there's three personalities in the state that are very unique and extremely different from each other. So it's been great to see Deion's success, Coach Sanders' success, and how well he's done down there and how well he's done in recruiting. And so I don't know future scheduling plans on that, but that would be exciting.
Coach, we'll go over here to our left on the second row.
Hey, Lane, Stefan Kreisnik with the Clarion Ledger. When you look at the magnitude of that rivalry with Mississippi State, whether it be on the field or when it comes to recruiting, things of that nature, how valuable do you think it would be for you to start 3-0 in your career in the Egg Bowl?
Well, again, we got a lot of work to do before we ever get to that game. It's been exciting to be fortunate to be 2-0 in that. That, means a lot to us, but especially to the people of Mississippi, obviously. And then, until you get into those unique rivalries, you can watch them on TV like I used to on Thanksgiving and hear about them, but you really don't know until you get to a place like Mississippi and you see how much it means to the people. And, they're not kidding when they say like their next 364 days will be affected. When the common fan says that, they're serious. So that has been neat to be able to give that to our fans, and hopefully we can continue that.
Coach, we're going to go to our right side, about 4 rows back.
Hey, Lane, Wilson Alexander with The Advocate. There's been a lot made with USC and UCLA going to the Big Ten of how that stretches the conference across the country. When you were the coach at USC, what kind of challenge would it have been to travel that much during a season?
Well, that would be a lot, especially, when that schedule wasn't a lot of traveling, in the Pac-12 or Pac-10 even before that. So the Notre Dame game was a big thing, every year. And do you even go 2 days early in that conversation? So there'll be different challenges with that for a conference that's not used to traveling very far. So, but we got plenty of our own issues and problems to work on. So, and they can deal with that in whatever 2 years from now.
Coach, we're going to go back over here on the left-hand side. Edgar.
Yeah, Edgar Thompson, the Orlando Sentinel. You ready for another Nick Saban question? Sorry.
Sure.
There's been a lot of SEC coaches who came from that tree or worked for him at least, and with varying degrees of success. What aspect of the blueprint that so many are trying to implement is critical to have in your program? Like if there was one or two aspects.
Well, I did an interview the other day that went more in depth in this, and it really is amazing. You guys would know history better than me. I would doubt that there's ever been a coach in any sport, college or professional, that has so many people under him that are at major jobs. I mean, you're talking about top 25 jobs, and I don't know what we counted, 5 or 6 of them or something the other day when we counted all those guys that have been there, or even that were there just for the 3 years I was there, that were assistant coaches. So it really is amazing, not just for someone to produce coaches that people hire because they're trying to get the Alabama program, but for those to have success and to be at major places speaks volumes of, how phenomenal a coach is. I think people take very different things from him, and I think you see that. I kind of think there's a difference when you look at offense and defensive coaches. I feel like when you look at the defensive coaches that leave there, usually like the Georgia blueprint, basically take everything and move it there. And because that's a big part about Alabama's program, whatever year you were there, the defense was the same and it hasn't changed for the most part. And I think the offensive head coaches leave, whoever, Billy or Sark or Locks, and the program looks a little different because they usually have their own offensive flair that they end up running. But I'm sure everybody probably takes, I would think, his organization, his commitment to the program, and try to model his discipline that he has within that.
Coach, we're going to go down here to our right-hand side, second row.
Charles Odom with the Associated Press. You mentioned right off the top the importance of the transfer portal and filling some holes on your roster this year. I'm wondering, in the last year, what changes have you seen in your discussions with potential transfers of the NIL, and what do you think the coach's role should be in that whole discussion?
Well, what should the coach's role be in that discussion? I mean, I think ideally, if we're going to be in an NIL world and somehow you're going to do it right and it's going to get capped, so that there's some way of controlling it and keeping playing fields close to the same. Otherwise, you're just going to have these glaring differences within Division I football based off of what I've said before, their salary cap. I know it's not really the right word. And ideally, I would think that the coach should be part of managing that. That's how you would want it done, but I don't know if it'll be that way or whatever. So that's just how I would do, and that's based off of look what happens in professional sports. There's salary caps, and the coach and the general manager / owner manage that.
Coach, we're going to go right in front of me. About
Because
three rows away.
the other thing about that too is if it's not, I would say, okay, well, why would you put it that way when coaches aren't supposed to be involved in that? Well, you got a whole other set of problems. If you got boosters out there deciding who they're going to pay to come play and the coach isn't involved in it, how's that work? I mean, they could just go pick who they want and pay them however much, and then are they going to tell you, the boosters going to tell you who to play to? And then when they don't play, how's that going to work out? So, again, this was not thought out at all, in my opinion, and has created a massive set of issues, which I think when people really thought about it, from a coach's standpoint, could have predicted this was going to happen.
All right, we'll go straight down in front of me, 3 rows back. Lane.
Right here. Lane Kiffin. This is Lane Higgins from the Wall Street Journal.
Cool.
I had a question for you a little bit about recruiting and how it has kind of changed to be, more of a photo shoot or a, experience. And you've had, Rolls Royces on campus. You obviously have a very cute sidekick and Juice. Can you talk a little bit about, why you've chosen to kind of implement those things and kind of lean into that aspect of college football, even though it's, very much has nothing to do with what the actual product on the field is going to be?
Because I think for you guys that have been around me or listened to me, we don't sit around and complain how things are and how they should be. Yeah, ideally, shouldn't be picking places off of what your photo shoot is or what car they're taking pictures in. There's a lot of things that I wish were different, but it is what it is. Just like Coach Saban wants rules changed about hurry-up offense. Well, he adapted. So we don't sit around and worry about that. I think we try to be creative. We kind of have a saying, we don't think outside the box, we just create a new box. And so if that's what kids care about and look at, then, we don't do things the way they were done before. And I think that's how we would operate anywhere, but especially at Ole Miss, you need to be that way to have a chance. So like the commissioner, I didn't wear a tie today. And he's like, man, I've always wanted to do that. I'm like, well, don't just do things the way they were before. He's like, I was waiting for someone to do it. So maybe the commissioner won't have a tie next year. Because why are we supposed to wear a tie? Just because it was done before? Doesn't really matter.
All right, we're going to go midway through this mid-aisle. Learn on the aisle.
Hi, Lane. Aaron Groshon from the Cats Paws in Lexington. Kentucky is the cross-divisional game this year. What do you remember about that matchup a few years ago in 2020, and what's impressed you with how much that program has changed since when you saw them at Tennessee?
One day they're going to make you guys stand up because half the time I have no idea who's asking the question, so I just look around. So that was a great game at Kentucky. We were brand new. That was the strange COVID year. So not only was it our first year, but we didn't have a spring ball, and all of a sudden we're playing games. And what a crazy game to go down to the wire like that. Coach Stoops has done an unbelievable job. At a place that isn't traditionally winning 8, 9, 10 games. So I always think that's really cool and special when someone can do that. And like I said before, doing things better than they've been done before, and I would think he's probably in the best run of the school, I would guess. So we'll have a set of challenges there. He's very good on defense and very complicated, and I know they've had really good success running the ball, and we're very creative offensively, watching some of their games last year, and did a great job, especially with some NFL concepts involved.
All right, we're going to go coach right in front of me. Kirk, third row back.
Kirk Bowles from the Austin American-Statesman. I support the no-tie look, by the way.
There you
go. USC, UCLA, Texas, Oklahoma, 4 huge brands. 3 of them really not at the top of their game right now. Do you think they, all 4, know what they're in for joining these 2 power leagues, and you think they'll struggle for a while?
They've been playing in great conferences and against great opponents, and so I just say how it is. I don't know that there's a huge jump into the Big Ten. I think going to the SEC is a whole nother animal. And I think the draft picks and national championships prove that coming out of the SEC. And I've just said it's a different world. They've said it for a long time. The SEC just means more, and it does. And it's just different. It's ahead of the game. And now, over the last 5, 10 years, the players have started coming that didn't used to come from the Northeast and the West Coast very often at all. And that transition, I feel like, started with Alabama especially, and now they're coming to the SEC. So that's a big challenge. So I know everything obviously is about money nowadays, or else teams wouldn't be going with these, playing all over the place and breaking up these awesome traditions. So, the coaches got to deal with it and get ready for a different world.
Coach, we're going to go right here on the far right, front row, just right over to our right.
Thought I'd stand up for you,
Thank
just
you.
like you asked.
Front row is a little easier on that part.
Yes, sir. So obviously there's been a lot of, you're just talking about the volatility with the realignment in college football. What's it kind of like, as one of the coaches in the SEC, one of the conferences that everyone's been eyeing, trying to get into, what's it like to be one of the people on the inside where there's all this volatility going around?
Well, I hadn't really thought about it that way. I've said, just like I mentioned, the SEC is the top of everything. And, so people are always trying to chase the SEC and figure it out. So I don't know the history behind the moves, but I'm sure it had something to do with the SEC starting the unique moves for that to happen, for traditional teams like USC and UCLA to move like that. So not that my opinion matters on it, but I don't like that. I think that that's really, there's so much tradition, and when you go to places, and you've been at USC, you've been at all these different places, you see how passionate fans are about certain things and what matters and rivalries, and for those to be dismantled for money is kind of a shame.
Okay, we have time for 3 more. We're going to start right over here on our right in the middle section.
Connor O'Gara, Saturday Down South. Excuse my tie. Apologies for that. Lane, I saw that you signed a mustard bottle earlier. Have you signed a lot of those in the last 9 months?
I did sign a mustard bottle. That was the first guy to come up, which I think he had Alabama shirt on, so I was a little confused there. And so, yes, I've signed a lot of mustard balls and golf balls, which normally I haven't. So it's been a unique off season.
Okay, we're going to stay over in that.
And I'd like to say on the golf ball, which goes back to the first pitch, which I threw out for the Tennessee game, and we got swept by Tennessee and didn't play well, and everybody thought it was my fault. I had a plan. I wanted our guys to stay humble and not play very well, and then we'd go win the national championship in baseball. So I'd like to say that was a plan. So all the Tennessee fans that were all excited about sweeping us, there was a plan.
All right, we'll go over to the same section midway back. Go ahead, sir. Here's the mic.
Hey, Coach, over here. Drew Barrett, ESPN Arkansas. Last year, not only one of the best games y'all played in, but as far as the SEC in general, was against Arkansas. What are your thoughts about the rivalry with Arkansas and it becoming possibly one of the big marquee rivalries in the SEC?
Well, that was an exciting game, and again, it just shows you can't predict year to year, week to week. You got no idea how games are going to go because that game was completely different than the game the year before with them in a low-scoring game. So that's an exciting rivalry, one that means a lot to fans as well. And Coach has done an unbelievable job there, turning around a program that we got there at the same time, and had really struggled. It wasn't like Arkansas was losing, most of their games close. So to see the turnaround that Coach Pittman did is really amazing.
Hey, Coach, we'll go right here on straight in front of me, about midway back in the blue.
Joe Goodman, AL.com. 1 year into NIL, what have you found works with NIL? What doesn't work? And you say college football is all about money right now, so how have you managed that in your program? You mentioned maybe there needs to be general managers, but have you kind of delegated that responsibility to someone already, or how have you gone about dealing with that?
Well, the first question is the keys to NIL and how do you do well at that? You have really good boosters. That's how you do well at it. So I'll say what other people don't say, as you know. So it's like a payroll, in baseball. What teams win over a long period of time? Teams that have high payrolls and can pay players a lot. So we're in a situation not any different than that, which is what I'm not saying I didn't. I'm sure other people said it. I said it day one. You legalize cheating, and so get ready for the people that have the most money to get the best players. And now you have it. So it is what it is. And as far as a general manager to manage that, we aren't allowed in the current system to manage what they make. So there isn't. Well, we're not there yet, and I don't know that we ever will be. That's just what I said it should be, because that's what any other, professional sports, which is what we are now, does.
All right, Coach Kiffin, thank you for your time.
All right, guys, thanks for coming. Appreciate it.